She trusted him like breath. He said he was at a business meeting, but when the boutique doors slid open, she saw him holding the one woman he swore he'd forgotten. And she didn't cry. She walked. That was the day truth stopped whispering and hit hard. Welcome to Mr. Charles Stories, where every quiet decision leaves a loud lesson. If this story moves something in you, don't just watch, feel it. Drop a comment if you've ever stayed silent, not out of fear, but out of power. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe peace is louder than confrontation. Talia Mendez didn't believe in screaming matches or grand confrontations. She believed in peace, in the kind of love that didn't need fixing every weekend, in men who didn't lie, not even with silence. She had grown up in the back corner of a quiet Atlanta duplex, raised by a mother who stretched every dollar and every ounce of patience. Her mother never taught her how to slap someone in a fit of rage. She taught her how to stand still until the lies sank themselves. Talia carried that with her into adulthood, calm, observant, never loud. So when she met Cassian Lore, all she asked of him was honesty. He wasn't the typical billionaire type on paper, not flashy, not loud, just clean suits, cold eyes, and a voice that made rooms pause. Cassian ran a global retail empire, the kind whose logo sat in every airport and hotel gift shop in the world. They met at a university career fair. He wasn't speaking, he was browsing. And she wasn't trying to charm. She was managing a sustainability booth, with second-hand signage and frizzy curls pulled into a messy bun. No makeup, no heels, just confidence and clarity. He lingered, asked questions, listened, and when he emailed her the next day asking for coffee, she replied without hesitation. They dated quietly, no red carpets, no yacht photos, no jewelry announcements on social media, just late-night Chinese food in paper boxes, shared playlists, slow walks near the Chattahoochee River. And one rainy evening, under a rusted bus stop shelter, he whispered, "I'll never go behind your back." She married him for that sentence. 3 years later, that same sentence sat like a warning sign in her memory. The first weekend of December came with rain in the forecast and a packed schedule. Cassian told her he had back-to-back meetings, product launches, vendor negotiations, the works. He had to stay at the corporate hotel 2 nights in a row. Talia didn't argue. She packed his travel bag with clean socks, his allergy medication, and a little handwritten note tucked inside the interior zipper, "Don't forget to eat." He kissed her on the forehead before leaving. His lips lingered like always. Nothing felt different. That Saturday afternoon, Talia headed to a boutique in West Midtown to buy a birthday present for his niece. She wore jeans and a sweater, her curls pinned loosely. No need to look perfect. She was married, not performing. She parked, crossed the sidewalk, paused at the boutique entrance. That's when her breath caught. Across the street was a cafe, modern, glass-framed, with a clear view of every customer seated by the windows. Cassian sat inside, head slightly down, one hand on the table, the other wrapped gently around a woman's fingers. His back was to her, but the shape of his shoulders, the tilt of his head, she knew it was him before she even thought to doubt. The woman leaned forward. Her face was half-turned, obscured by shadow and indoor lighting. But her posture wasn't platonic. This wasn't a meeting. It wasn't business. It was comfort. And just as Talia's hand gripped the boutique door handle, Cassian stood and opened his arms to the woman. She stepped in, and he embraced her fully, not fast, not forced, like it was normal. The boutique's automatic doors slid open with a light whoosh behind her. Cassian looked up, his eyes locked onto Talia's. The woman stepped back. Talia didn't blink. She didn't tremble. She turned into the boutique, walked past the cashier, didn't say a word. Cassian didn't follow. The woman didn't apologize. No one came after her. And that told her everything. Talia didn't buy anything that day. She walked through the boutique, touched the fabric of a silk blouse she knew wouldn't fit her niece, then stepped out the back exit without saying a word. Her hands were steady, her breath even. There were no tears, No drama, only confirmation. At home, she set her keys on the counter like she always did, took off her shoes, boiled rice, chopped carrots, folded the laundry she had left in the basket 2 days ago. She lit a candle in the hallway, just for scent, not for mood. She didn't check her phone until it buzzed on the counter. Cassian. Call ran late, heading to the hotel now. She didn't reply immediately. She read the message twice, then typed, Talia, okay, stay safe, nothing else. No, I miss you. No. How was your meeting? That night, she didn't sleep, but not because of pain, not in the usual sense. It was awareness, not the kind that drips panic, the kind that tightens everything, muscles, thoughts, breath, until the body finally listens to the truth it already knew. When Sunday rolled around, Cassian came home at 7:15 p.m. Talia was on the couch reading a home design magazine. The lights were soft. The house smelled of rosemary and citrus. He walked in with the casualness of a man returning from war, expecting a warm welcome. Hey, he said, leaning over to kiss her shoulder. She didn't flinch. He sat beside her. Weekend went well. We locked in the new European vendors. Lots of back and forth. She nodded once. Sounds productive. He smiled. How was your weekend? She turned a page slowly. Peaceful. He didn't notice the choice of word. He thought she was being sweet. He didn't know she meant empty of lies. By Monday, she had already accessed the bank account statements, not because she was paranoid, but because she had always handled the household books. She knew where the receipts went. Cassian used a corporate card for business meetings. That cafe from Saturday, it was paid for using their joint personal account. He'd ordered 2 entrees, 2 drinks, and a dessert, one that only he ever liked. She checked the timestamp, matched it with the moment she saw him, 1:22 p.m., and there it was. Truth, with whipped cream on top. Tuesday morning, she revisited his old private social media account. She remembered the name he used, an obscure handle with no photo. She hadn't thought about it in years. She scrolled until she found the tagged image. 3 years ago, a charity event. Cassian, with Lena. He had told her then, she was part of my past, but we stopped talking. She moved on. I moved on, but in the photo, her hand had been on his chest. Familiar. She wore a silver bracelet with a leaf-shaped charm. Saturday's reflection on the boutique window, the faint silhouette, wore the same bracelet. Her eyes, her posture, her presence. It was Lena. Talia didn't mention it. She didn't confront, didn't accuse. Instead, she moved differently. No warm greetings, no reminders for his morning vitamins, no hand on his back when he walked past. She served meals, but lighter, folded towels, but not his. She didn't kiss him before bed. She let the space fill with his own discomfort, and he felt it. By Thursday night, Cassian leaned against the bedroom doorframe while she moisturized her hands. Everything okay? She looked up in the mirror. Why wouldn't it be? You just seem off. I'm tired, she said. We've both been busy. He nodded, unsure. And that was the first time in their marriage he looked like a man wondering if he'd been caught, without knowing how. Friday morning changed everything. Cassian had always been a careful man. Passwords, encrypted work devices, fingerprint access on his phone. But that day, he left his phone on the kitchen counter, screen unlocked while he took a shower. And the screen lit up with one name, Lena. The message was short. Lena, thanks for yesterday. Still feels safe with you. Talia stared at it. She didn't gasp. She didn't scroll up. She didn't need more. She already had enough. She picked up the phone, typed slowly. Talia, as Cassian, come over. She placed the phone back on the counter, right where he left it, locked it, sat at the table, boiled water, made tea, and waited. Not to fight, not to scream, to confirm, because love doesn't hide in rage. It hides in clarity. At 7:14 p.m., the doorbell rang. Talia opened it without hesitation. Lena stood there, wool sweater, hair pulled low, a hesitant smile that faded when she saw who opened the door. "Oh," she said softly. You thought he texted you," Talia answered. Lena looked down. "This is awkward. I bet it is." Talia stepped aside. "Come in." Lena stepped in carefully, her boots silent against the hardwood floor. She clutched her purse tightly, glancing around the living room like it wasn't supposed to exist, or maybe like she wasn't supposed to be standing in it. Talia watched her movements but said nothing. She didn't offer a seat. She didn't ask her intentions. She let the moment sit. Lena finally cleared her throat. "I'm guessing he didn't mean for this to happen." Talia's tone was flat. "He rarely means for things to happen. They just do." A short silence followed. Lena lowered herself into the chair by the edge of the fireplace. "I didn't know you were still together." Talia arched an eyebrow. "Did he tell you we weren't?" Lena looked away. "Not exactly. He said things were distant, that you were focused on your own life now, that you needed space." Talia let the words hang in the air. "Space," she repeated, slowly. "Interesting choice. You're his ex. You think you know what space means for him?" Lena gave a weak laugh, more guilt than humor. "I used to. But it seems I still fall for that same old charm." Talia didn't nod. She didn't soften. She was still. Lena tried again. "Look, I didn't come here to mess anything up. I just thought—" Talia interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. "You thought he texted you, but it was me, from his unlocked phone. I wanted to see if you'd come." Lena's mouth parted slightly. "I came because—" She trailed off, then whispered, "Because I wanted to—" "I know," Talia replied, pouring herself tea. "That's what I needed to know." They sat in silence again. The kind that says more than noise. The walls didn't shake. The air didn't tense. But everything changed. "I never would have come," Lena said finally, "if I knew you were still living here, still married." "You didn't ask." "I assumed." "That's the problem," Talia said, looking directly at her. "People assume silence means absence. But sometimes silence is just power under control." Lena breathed in through her nose. "He said he needed a friend. Did he mention the marriage he still benefits from?" Talia asked. "The meals, the quiet support, the loyalty?" "No," Lena whispered. "Exactly." The sound of a car door shutting outside made them both pause. "Cassian." Talia placed her teacup on the table without rushing. She didn't fix her face, didn't prepare a scene. She let him walk in. The door unlocked. Keys rattled. Cassian stepped inside, looking relaxed. Bag in hand, the same half-smile he always wore when returning home. He looked up, froze. His bag dropped to the floor. Lena turned toward him from the armchair. Cassian blinked twice, stunned into stillness. Talia didn't flinch. "She's been waiting," she said calmly, without turning her head. Cassian looked from one woman to the other. "What is going on?" "She got your message," Talia said. "I didn't." Talia tilted her head slightly. "You left your phone unlocked. I read Lena's message, and I invited her over." "From your phone?" He looked at Lena. She stood now, arms crossed tightly. "You told me she wasn't in the picture." "I never said that," he stammered. "I said we were working through things." Talia folded her arms. "By hugging your ex at a cafe while I walked into a boutique across the street." He turned back to her. "It wasn't like that." "How was it then?" Cassian hesitated. "She just showed up. We were catching up, that's all." "While holding her hand?" Talia asked quietly. He said nothing. "You hugged her," she continued. "I saw you. You looked at her like she still held part of you. And maybe she does. But she shouldn't have been sitting across from you if I'm still standing beside you." Cassian stepped forward. "Nothing happened." "That's worse," Talia whispered. He froze. "You held her like something was still there. You didn't resist it. You welcomed it. And that's not a mistake. That's a choice. Talia. No, she said, steady. I'm not angry about what happened. I'm angry about what you pretended wasn't happening. He tried again. We didn't cross any lines. She looked straight at him. You crossed every line when you said you were at a meeting. Lena looked down, visibly shrinking. Talia glanced at her, not with disgust, not with pity, just finality. This isn't your fault alone, she said to Lena. You believed a version of him that worked in your favor. That's human. But now you know. Lena nodded once, lips pressed tight. Cassian reached for Talia's hand, but she stepped back. She didn't flinch. She didn't slap. She didn't cry. She just stepped away. That was all. And for Cassian, it was enough to feel the loss before she ever packed a single bag. Cassian's hand hovered mid-air. He had reached for her, reached for the same woman he'd broken a promise to. But now he stood there, the air between them wider than the room, and Talia wasn't stepping into it. She didn't move closer. She didn't tell him to explain. She didn't tell him to leave either. She waited, just long enough for him to feel how far he'd fallen from her. I'm sorry, he said finally, voice low, careful. I didn't mean for this to happen. Talia tilted her head. That's the second time I've heard those words tonight. He looked to Lena. Lena looked at the floor. Talia walked to the edge of the hallway and leaned against the frame. Calm, composed. You didn't mean to hold her hand? She asked. Didn't mean to look at her the way you used to look at me? Cassian's jaw worked. I was caught in a moment. Were you also caught in a lie? She asked, steady. Or did you walk into that one willingly? Lena rose, picking up her purse. I should go. You should, Talia replied, her tone cool but not cruel. Cassian stepped toward her. Talia, please. She didn't raise her voice. Do not beg for what you chose to betray. He flinched at the words. I never slept with her. You didn't need to, Talia said. You gave her the parts of you that are worse to lose. Your time, your thoughts, the comfort of knowing you'd lie for her. Lena opened the door slowly, pausing as if she wanted to say more. But Talia didn't look at her again. And silence was answer enough. The door closed behind her. Now, it was just the two of them. Cassian dropped into the armchair Lena had sat in, rubbing his face with both hands. I messed up. Talia stayed standing. I don't even know what I was thinking, he said. You weren't, she replied. You were feeling. And because you didn't check those feelings, they became actions. Actions you thought I'd never see. I wasn't trying to cheat. Talia gave a short, sharp breath, not quite a laugh. But you were trying to feel something that wasn't mine. Cassian looked up at her. It was stupid. You're right. But you don't just throw out a whole marriage over one slip. One slip? She repeated, voice still low. He stood again. Talia, I watched you lie to my face while holding her hand in public, she said. You didn't even flinch when you came home. You ate my food, slept in my bed, and told me your weekend was productive. Cassian's shoulders dropped. I've been under pressure. No, she said. You were under choice, and you chose comfort over truth. He didn't know what to say anymore. The man who led boardrooms and closed billion-dollar deals couldn't manage the silence of his own living room. Talia finally moved, walking toward the bedroom. She wasn't rushing. She wasn't packing. She was just done talking. He followed. Please, tell me what to do to fix this. She stopped at the doorframe, her back still to him. You don't fix betrayal with favors. You fix it with absence, with silence, with letting the person you broke rebuild themselves without the weight of you in the way. Talia, I'm not asking for space, she said, turning to him. I'm taking it. That night, she didn't pack anything. She took her coat, her wallet, her phone. She didn't leave a note. She didn't take her rings. She walked out at 4:43 a.m., and for the first time since they met, she didn't wonder if he'd follow, because this time she hoped he wouldn't. Have you ever walked away without slamming a door, because you knew silence was enough? Drop, She didn't need to scream in the comments if you've ever chosen quiet strength over loud pain. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the most powerful move is leaving with your peace. Talia didn't go far. She checked into a quiet hotel off Peachtree Street, the kind with keycard silence and no questions asked. A white comforter, a view of office buildings, no room service. That was the first time in years she slept without a second toothbrush on the counter. No wedding band on her nightstand. No one waiting in the next room to explain things they never should have done. She woke up without an alarm, stared at the ceiling until the sunlight curved over her face. Stillness felt different now. It didn't feel like waiting. It felt like starting over. She didn't answer. He called again, then sent a text. "Cassian, Talia, please. Let's talk. Don't walk away like this." She placed the phone face down and rolled over. By noon, she had ordered plain toast and tea, ate slowly, let her body process the shift. For years, she had built mornings around him, from the way she folded his shirts to how she prepared his planner. She was always steady, available, loyal, but today she felt unbound, and instead of mourning, she felt steady. She didn't return home. She didn't tell anyone, not even her closest friend, Imani. Some things didn't need a crowd. Some endings came with dignity, not announcements. She booked another 2 nights, walked the block for fresh air, passed couples, dodged calls, and when her lawyer returned her email that evening, she replied with clear instructions. Clean separation, no war, just freedom. Cassian, meanwhile, didn't sleep. He sat in the kitchen past midnight, drinking lukewarm tea and rereading her last words. "I'm not asking for space. I'm taking it." He had said worse things to clients, had ended deals with fewer words, but something about the quiet in her voice. It was final, and he wasn't used to final. He was used to fixing, apologizing, adjusting, winning back. But this time, he had nothing to offer. No gifts, no gestures. Because the woman he married wasn't moved by noise. She moved when truth was too loud to ignore. By the second day, he tried Imani. "Have you heard from her?" he asked, voice cracked from exhaustion. Imani hesitated. "Why would she be talking to me if she's not talking to you?" He paused. "She's not answering, not texting. She's just gone." Imani was quiet for a second. Then, "Did you expect her to fight you over it? To cry and make a scene?" "No, but she's not that woman," Imani said. "You knew that when you married her." He closed his eyes. "You don't get to be shocked now that she left the same way she stayed, calm, clear, and done." Meanwhile, Talia found an apartment listing near Piedmont Park. A small one-bedroom space with a bay window and just enough light. The woman showing her the place said, "It's not big, but it's peaceful." And Talia smiled. "That's exactly what I'm looking for." The new apartment didn't come with much. No concierge, no skyline view, just quiet walls, clean floors, and the kind of peace you earn after giving up on appearances. Talia signed the lease that Thursday afternoon. She moved in with 2 suitcases, a laptop bag, and a box of spices she couldn't live without. No movers, no fanfare. She unpacked her plates one by one, lined her books along a single shelf, placed a tea mug on the windowsill. For the first time in years, everything in the apartment belonged to her, not shared, not negotiated. No one else's scent on the towels, no one else's schedule on the wall. Cassian didn't stop reaching. He sent a package to her old address, a handwritten letter, a watch she once admired in a storefront. The note read, "Time is the only thing I can't get back. But I'm asking if we can fix what's still in front of us." She didn't reply. She boxed the watch and mailed it to his office. No note, no return address, just finality. By the following week, Talia had found her rhythm. Early morning walks around Piedmont, a local cafe with lavender honey lattes. A client referral from her old marketing job turned into a consulting gig, then another. She wasn't rebuilding her life, she was living it. One morning, Her phone buzzed. "Imani, you good?" the voice asked. "I'm whole." Imani exhaled. "That's the best answer I've heard from you in a long time." Talia sipped her tea. "It's the best answer I've given in a long time." Cassian wasn't faring the same. His team noticed the shift. He showed up on time, but the fire was gone. He closed deals, but slower. He stayed at the office later, but not because he was working, because going home felt like walking into a room full of questions. One night, his assistant, Cora, stopped outside his office door. "Sir," he looked up, eyes hollow. "You've rescheduled 3 meetings this week," she said gently. "And your mother called." Twice. He nodded but didn't speak. She hesitated. "Do you want me to book your usual therapist?" "I already did," he said, voice rough. "Didn't help." Cora paused. "Then maybe you need to stop trying to fix the version of you that's convenient." He blinked. "Maybe it's time you sit with the version that lost her," she said. That night, Cassian sat in his car outside his house. The porch light was on, the garden untouched, her plants still watered by the neighbor she paid in advance. He didn't go inside. He just sat there. The silence in the driveway felt heavier than anything inside. Talia, across town, sat at her small dining table, mismatched chairs, single plate, soft jazz in the background. She sliced an apple, opened her journal, and wrote one line. "Peace feels like freedom I never knew I could claim." She didn't miss the noise. She didn't miss the man. She missed the idea she once believed in, that love, once promised, stayed honest. But what she gained was more permanent. Friday morning broke quietly. No harsh buzz of a phone alarm. No half-dressed husband pacing the hallway, talking numbers into a Bluetooth headset. No scent of his cologne fading into the air. The apartment was silent, still, hers. Talia stirred from bed without rush. The sun kissed her shoulder as she moved the curtain aside and let the light pour in. Outside, Atlanta moved. Inside, peace stayed anchored. She wrapped a robe around her waist, padded barefoot to the kitchen, and started the kettle. The tea cabinet wasn't stocked like the one in their house. No imported herbal blends or curated infusions from Cassian's team of assistants. Just chamomile, mint, something simple, soothing, just like her mornings now. At the edge of the small kitchen table sat a brown envelope with her lawyer's logo printed in sharp font. Inside, the finalized divorce papers waited, untouched since they arrived 2 days ago. She'd avoided them, not out of hesitation, but because signing them meant the final thread would be cut. The last thread of a man she once trusted with her full name and future. But she wasn't afraid of endings anymore. She sat down, opened the folder, and read through every page with calm eyes. No division of assets, no settlements, no prolonged negotiations. She hadn't asked for the house. She didn't want the car. She didn't need half the shares in his company or the watch he wore when he hugged another woman in public. She only wanted her name back, her stillness, her ability to breathe in a room without wondering who else had been in his hands that day. At the end of the final page, she picked up her pen and signed. One name, one signature. No flourish, just truth. She didn't rush to seal the envelope. She sat for a while, breathing through the finality of it. Divorce wasn't a failure. It wasn't weakness. It was release. It was the moment you stop begging something dead to keep living. Talia took out a note card and scribbled a message to Cassian. Nothing dramatic. No edits needed. Just signatures. Let's end this well. She slipped it inside, sealed the envelope, and called a courier service to pick it up within the hour. No second thoughts. No dramatic send-off. Just paperwork and peace. Across town, Cassian stood in his corner office at Lorry Global. The skyline stretched behind him, glass and steel glittering like the life he built. A perfect image, successful, respected, powerful, except it didn't feel powerful anymore. His eyes kept drifting to his phone. No messages, no missed calls, no signs of her. He hadn't heard Talia's voice in 12 days. He thought time would make it easier, that she would reach out, that she would cool down, that she'd need closure. But she didn't need closure. She needed distance. And she took it without fanfare. His assistant, Cora, entered holding a large envelope. He turned. "This came by courier," she said, placing it on his desk. He already knew. She didn't have to say her name. He stared at it for minutes after she left. He touched the flap, but didn't open it right away. He wasn't ready for what silence looked like on paper. At 3:12 p.m., he finally opened it. Her handwriting greeted him first. Clean, precise, no anger in the ink. No edits needed, just signatures. "Let's end this well." He scanned the documents. All signed, all final. She wasn't waiting for him to fix it. She was done, and he had nothing left to offer. Back in her apartment, Talia curled on the couch with a bowl of fruit and her laptop. She browsed through interior design blogs, not because she needed inspiration, but because she could finally imagine a space built around her. No marble countertops she didn't choose. No wall art curated by Cassian's designer. No white leather couches that made her feel like a guest in her own home. Just color, warmth, wood, plants she'd actually water. She bookmarked a few pieces. Soft yellow throw pillows, a deep green accent chair, a vintage mirror. It wasn't about style, it was about expression. For the first time, her space would match her spirit. At 5:22 p.m., her phone buzzed. "Imani, I'm outside, and I brought food and judgment." Talia smiled and walked to the door. She opened it to find Imani holding a bag of takeout and 2 sodas. "Tell me this place has forks," Imani said, brushing past her like she owned the place. "And tell me you haven't been crying." "No crying," Talia said, locking the door behind her. Imani looked around. "It's small." Talia nodded. "It's quiet." "I'll take quiet over cold," Imani muttered. They settled at the table. Talia passed the forks. Imani passed the sauce packets. "So, you signed?" Imani asked after her second bite. "Yes." "No regrets?" "None." "You miss him?" Talia paused. Not to think, but to feel the question fully. "I miss the version of him I thought I married," she said slowly. "But the version he became? I let that go the moment I saw her in his arms." Imani nodded. "You know I was never his biggest fan." "I know," Talia said with a small smile. "But I was always your biggest fan," she added. Talia leaned back. "Now I'm mine too." At that same hour, Cassian stood alone in the kitchen of his house. The air felt heavier. The rooms echoed. He looked at the empty place where her planner used to sit. At the mug she always used. At the plant she used to talk to when she thought no one was listening. He hadn't replaced anything. Because you can't decorate over absence. He sat down with the divorce packet in front of him. Pen in hand, signature lines staring at him. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and signed. Cassian signed his name with the same hand that used to hold hers in crowded rooms. Same hand that once slid a ring onto her finger under 100 twinkling lights, promising always. But promises didn't mean much when you broke them quietly. When the pen dropped, the echo felt too loud for such a calm house. He sat still for a long time, staring at the divorce papers. The signature line was just black ink now, but it screamed. Because he'd signed the last thing that tethered him to her. And unlike their wedding certificate, this document asked for no vow. Just truth. A quiet, final kind of truth. The kitchen light flickered. He looked around the room. Everything still sat where she'd left it. The jar of lentils she always refilled, the plant she used to talk to when she cleaned, the ghost of her music that once drifted in every Sunday morning. But her presence wasn't in any of it. It was gone. And now he knew. Things don't feel empty until the person who gave them meaning stops showing up. That night, Cassian didn't sleep. He lay on one side of the bed, listening to the silence he used to call peace. It was too loud now. Every breath felt like a reminder of what he lost. He kept checking his phone, Not for a call, not for a miracle, just for a reply. But she'd already replied, "I already have what I need. My peace." He read it 10 times. There was no insult, no cruelty, no wish for him to suffer, which somehow made it worse. Across town, Talia curled up on her couch with a warm bowl of soup and the soft crackle of music playing from her phone speaker. Her lamp glowed golden in the corner. The living room was small, the air still. She wasn't alone, she was with herself. And she liked the company. The tea on her side table had gone cold. She didn't mind. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't performing. Not for a man, not for marriage, not even for survival. She was being whole, being honest, being still. Saturday morning came with a soft breeze through the apartment window. She opened the blinds and stood barefoot on the floor, her fingers wrapped around a fresh cup of tea. She wasn't waiting for anything. Not a knock, not a message, not a man to realize what he lost. Peace, she had learned, wasn't passive. It was earned, and she had earned it. At 9 a.m., a knock echoed through her apartment. Not urgent, just firm. She opened the door to find a delivery man holding a small brown box. "Talia Mendez?" he asked. She nodded. "Signature here." She signed, took the package, and thanked him. No return address, no name, just her own written neatly across the label. She placed the box on the table and opened it slowly. Inside was a soft grey sweater, folded neatly. Familiar. She blinked. Her fingers brushed over the fabric. She remembered it. A chilly night after a late dinner, back when Cassian used to listen. When they laughed until midnight in his car and she forgot her sweater in the back seat. She never went back for it. Folded on top was a note. The handwriting was his. "You forgot this. Or maybe I never deserved to keep it." No apology. No ask. Just a line. Simple. Heavy. She didn't cry. She folded the sweater carefully and placed it in the bottom drawer of her dresser. Not because she wanted to wear it, but because it reminded her of something. True, she was never coming back for what no longer fit her life. Later that afternoon, Imani knocked on her door with 2 large tote bags of used books and a wide smile. "You ready to do some good?" she asked. Talia grabbed her coat. Always. They drove together to a community park downtown, where volunteers gathered to host a local book drive. Card tables were set up beneath white tents, books stacked in loose categories, and kids sat cross-legged on tarps reading dog-eared comics. Talia helped sort paperbacks while Imani flirted with a guy from the history section. By mid-afternoon, she had already talked with 2 single moms, shared 3 laughs with teenagers, and found an old poetry book she'd read in college. She held it up. "Remember this?" Imani glanced over. "You used to quote that one to Cassian when you were trying to help him relax." Talia smiled without sadness. "And now I quote it to myself." They sat under a tree later, each holding cups of spiced cider handed out by a local vendor. Imani leaned back. "You ever think about dating again?" "I think about living again," Talia said, watching the wind sway the leaves. "If someone wants to join me in that, I'll know." "So you're not closed off?" "Never. My heart's not bitter. It's just not desperate." Imani raised her cup. "To knowing better." Talia clinked hers. "To doing better." At that same hour, Cassian sat in the backyard of his estate, alone. The trees stood still, the grass untouched. The outdoor seating hadn't been used since the day Talia left. He hadn't opened the back patio doors since then. But tonight, he did. He sat with a drink, water, not whiskey, and listened to the quiet that used to feel comforting. Now it just felt like a reminder. He checked his phone. Still, nothing. He opened their old messages and scrolled to one from nearly a year ago. "I don't ask for everything. I just ask that when you say you're mine, you mean it." He hadn't replied back then. He'd assumed she knew. Now he knew what assumptions cost. By the time the sun dipped low and painted Atlanta in gold, Talia was walking home alone from the train station. She didn't rush. Her steps were slow. shoes clicking on the sidewalk with confidence. She stopped once in front of a window, a small art store. Inside, a canvas read, "You don't lose when you leave something that no longer honors you." She stared at it, then nodded once, and walked on. Cassian didn't return the papers right away. They sat on his kitchen counter for 2 days, unbothered, unmoved, like a reminder that some endings wait for no one. He had signed them, yes, but he hadn't sent them back. A part of him still hoped she'd text, that she'd say, "Let's talk," that she'd leave a voice message, anything, even anger. But nothing came, not even silence now, just her absence. On the third morning, he sealed the envelope and handed it to his driver. "Take this to her lawyer." "Today," he said quietly. The driver nodded. Cassian turned away before the engine even started. He couldn't watch it leave, because this time it wasn't paperwork going out his door. It was the last piece of her. That afternoon, he walked into a boardroom full of partners. Halfway through a product pitch, his mind blanked. The charts on the wall blurred. The graphs meant nothing. He used to think focus was his gift, zoning in on numbers, cutting through noise. But Talia had been his anchor, his compass. Without her, even his most familiar rooms felt foreign. He cut the meeting short. No excuses. Just a nod. Back in his office, Cora came in holding a file. "Sir, you missed the last slide presentation." Investors noticed. He ran a hand down his face. "I'll fix it." She paused. With all due respect, they didn't come for perfection. They came for leadership. He looked up. Cora softened. "And leadership means knowing when you're human." He nodded once. No argument, no defense, just tired eyes. Meanwhile, in a small studio apartment near the park, Talia was finishing up a Zoom session with a brand strategy client. The screen blinked out. She exhaled, smiling. Her calendar was full. Small clients, creative entrepreneurs, people who wanted her insight without questioning her value. This was her rhythm now. She made her own rules, set her own hours, didn't wait for someone else's approval to feel valid. The version of her that had to ask for time, ask to be seen, ask to be kept, that woman didn't live here anymore. She took a walk around the neighborhood that evening, earbuds in, scarf loose around her neck. The city was cooler now, crisper air, early winter settling into the bones of the streets. She stopped at a small bookstore she'd never noticed before. Inside, she browsed slowly. No rush. A man stood nearby, browsing cookbooks. He glanced up, smiled politely. She returned it. Nothing more. She wasn't ready. Not for anything new, but she wasn't hiding either. And that mattered. Back at his house, Cassian walked into the guest bedroom. It still smelled faintly of her, jasmine and vanilla. He found her old notepad on the side table. He hadn't noticed it before. He flipped through the pages. Grocery lists, client notes, scribbled ideas. One page stood out, a half-written quote. "You don't stay for the past, you stay for the truth. And when truth leaves, so should you." No date, no context, but it felt like prophecy. He sat on the edge of the bed, holding the notepad, and whispered the question he never dared say aloud before. Why did I make it so easy for her to go? Across town, Talia sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop open, playlist running. She typed a journal entry, one she never intended to publish, just to release. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving him. I left because he stopped honoring what we built. And I won't stay in any space that treats me like an option while I'm offering loyalty." She saved it, closed the file, turned off the light, and slept peacefully. Because the hardest part of healing wasn't the walking away. It was trusting that she didn't need to go back. Sunday morning came with quiet skies and scattered light across the kitchen tiles. Cassian stood at the counter, staring into his coffee, watching the steam rise like smoke from something already burned. He didn't know how to live in the house without her rhythm. No soft drawers opening, no humming from the hallway, no mug placed beside his laptop with a folded napkin tucked under it. She used to leave quiet reminders of her care everywhere. Not grand gestures, just steady presence. And now the absence of those small things made the house feel massive, cold, unlivable. He wandered into the home office and sat at the desk. For a while, he didn't move, until he opened the drawer and pulled out the envelope. Not the papers, those were already gone. This one was from their wedding, a card, faded slightly, but still in her handwriting. Whatever happens, let's always tell the truth. Even when it's hard, even when it hurts. He stared at the line. Back then, he'd read it with a smile and tucked it away with pride. Now, it cut, because he'd done the opposite. He hadn't told the truth, not to her, not to himself. Meanwhile, Talia was halfway through organizing her closet. She didn't have much. She didn't need much. The space was limited, but it was real. Every item she kept had purpose. Nothing stayed just because it once cost a lot. Nothing stayed just because someone else liked it on her. It was the same rule she now applied to people. If they didn't add peace, they didn't stay. She folded a sweater, the same one from the mystery box Cassian had returned. She tucked it into the back of the drawer, not out of sight, but out of use. She didn't need to wear a memory to prove she'd moved on. That afternoon, she walked to her favorite cafe for lunch. The barista knew her name now, knew her order, knew she liked her sandwich grilled a little longer than usual. She sat by the window, watching people go by. Couples, kids, solo runners with earbuds. She no longer felt the sting of watching other people be loved, because she didn't envy them anymore. She had something they might not: freedom without bitterness, a full life without false comfort. Cassian, in his own desperate rhythm, drove by the boutique near West Midtown, the same one where the doors had opened, where she'd seen him holding Lena's hands. He parked across the street and stared at the cafe. Different people sat at the window now, but he could still picture it. Talia frozen by the entrance, seeing what she was never meant to see. He lowered his head against the steering wheel. He hadn't gone there to chase the past. He'd gone to feel the weight of what he'd done. Because the only way to face your failure is to revisit the place you created it. Back in her apartment, Talia spent the evening making soup from scratch, chopping onions, stirring slowly. Her playlist played soft acoustic songs in the background. She danced while she cooked, just a little, just enough. When the timer beeped, she served herself and sat on the floor with a throw pillow behind her back. She didn't miss luxury. She missed presence, and now she had her own. At 10:07 p.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I passed by the boutique today. I stood where it happened. I'm not asking to fix it. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. She read the message slowly. Her fingers hovered over the screen. But she didn't reply. Not because she didn't believe him, but because she didn't need confirmation anymore. He was late, and her healing didn't require his regret. Cassian sat in his car for another 20 minutes. The message stayed unread. No reply dots. No movement. He finally turned off the screen and looked at himself in the rearview mirror. He didn't recognize the man staring back. Not because he looked different, but because he finally felt everything he avoided. The guilt, the shame, the loneliness, and most of all, the realization. She had left with grace, not resentment. And that was the kind of goodbye you never recover from. Cassian didn't go out much anymore. He used to live in planes, boardrooms, hotel suites, and velvet-lined lounges. Now, the only rooms he could bear to sit in were the ones that stayed quiet. No music, no noise. Noise had become unbearable, because it reminded him of the woman who used to fill it with peace. The following Tuesday, a company event took place at the Lorry Global flagship, a networking mixer, the kind Cassian once thrived in. Normally he would have made an entrance, shaken hands, cracked a smile with clients. Instead, he stayed behind the glass on the mezzanine level, watching from above. From that angle, all the tailored suits and shining shoes looked empty. Everyone was performing. Everyone had masks on. It used to excite him. Now, it all felt hollow. He pulled his tie loose and stepped back. "You're not going down?" a voice asked behind him. It was a board member, Ellis Mann. Old money, old school mindset. "No," Cassian said. "Let them enjoy the show." Ellis stepped forward. "You used to own the room. I used to need to." Ellis raised a brow. "Is this about your wife?" Cassian didn't answer. "She was impressive," Ellis offered. "Class. Poise. I figured she was half the reason you were so grounded." Cassian nodded once. "She was all of it." That same night, Talia stood in her bathroom, wrapping a silk scarf around her curls. She didn't have plans. She was just preparing to rest. There was a ceremony in that, preparing for yourself. Not because someone would see you, but because you would. She wiped her face with a warm cloth, applied her moisturizer, and leaned in toward the mirror. The woman who looked back was rested, sharper, peaceful, unbothered. She got into bed with a journal, the same one she'd been filling for weeks, not with sadness, but with clarity. She wrote, "Loyalty doesn't leave all at once. It leaves slowly, in the ignored questions, in the unanswered gut feelings, in the hugs that start to feel like apologies instead of comfort." She paused, pen still in hand, then added, "And when it's gone, stillness takes its place." Not anger, just silence. The next morning, Cassian visited a non-profit Talia used to donate to. She had once introduced him to the director, a woman named Carla who organized free career training for women trying to re-enter the workforce. Back then, he'd cut a check for PR. This time, he arrived alone. No cameras, no press team. Carla's eyes widened as she walked into the conference room and saw him. "Cassian," she said. "Didn't expect to see you." He stood, hands in his pockets. "I'm not here to make a donation." "Then why are you here?" He swallowed. "Because she believed in this place, and I need to understand why I didn't." Carla folded her arms. "You mean Talia?" He nodded. She walked toward the window, thoughtful. She didn't just give money. She gave time. She sat with the women, listened to their stories, took notes, connected them to jobs. No cameras, just compassion. Cassian stared at the carpet. "I didn't come here to fix anything," he said. "I know I can't." Carla turned to him. "Then what do you want?" "To feel the weight of what she carried," he said quietly. "Because I never did when I had her." Later that night, Talia received a message from the non-profit's official email. It wasn't long. "Cassian stopped by today. No press, no speech, just questions. I thought you'd want to know, even if you don't want to care." Talia stared at the screen for a moment. Then she closed the tab. She didn't delete it. But she didn't answer either. Some things didn't need reactions. Some growth didn't need an audience. 2 days later, Cassian found himself outside a familiar door. Unit 4C, modest building, mid-rise, quiet street near Piedmont Park. He didn't knock right away. He stood still, hand hovering, as if the wood in front of him still remembered her warmth, the way she moved, the way she left. He hadn't been here since she signed the papers, hadn't driven past it, hadn't even dared to ask where she moved after. But Carla's words sat heavy in him. She didn't just give time, she gave herself. You never paid attention to what she was handing you until she had nothing left to give. He knocked, once, twice, nothing. He knocked again, softer this time. Footsteps approached. The door opened, but it wasn't Talia. It was Imani. She leaned against the frame, one brow lifted. "Well," she said slowly, "this is unexpected." Cassian cleared his throat. "She home?" Imani didn't move. "Why?" "I just want to talk." "You mean now, after she's rebuilt herself?" "I just need 5 minutes," he said. Imani folded her arms. "She gave you years." He swallowed hard. "She's not here," Imani added, after a long beat. "She's at a writing group." Cassian glanced at the floor. "Can you tell her I came by?" Imani stared at him for a moment, then said, "I'll tell her, but not because she needs to know, because you need to say it out loud." Then she closed the door. Talia didn't return until nearly 10. She walked in, dropped her bag, and kicked off her flats. Imani handed her a glass of water and said, "You had a visitor." Talia paused. Imani didn't smile, didn't frown. "Cassian," she said. Talia didn't blink. She just took a sip of water, walked to the couch, and sat. Imani followed. He said he wanted to talk. Talia tilted her head slightly, not in surprise, but in thought. "I figured he would," she said. "No interest." "I have interest," Talia said slowly, "but not in answers." Imani blinked. Then what? In watching him finally carry the silence he gave me. That night, Cassian sat in his car outside the apartment building. He didn't drive off. He just sat there, windows fogging, engine quiet. He thought about the years, the holidays, the morning coffees, the quiet look she used to give him when he was stressed, how she never interrupted his storms, but always stood in them with him. He thought about the way she'd said peace in her last message. He hadn't understood the weight of that word. Until now. Peace wasn't stillness. It was distance from harm. It was a woman who no longer needed to flinch at the sound of her own name. The next morning, he wrote her a letter. Not digital, not a message. An actual letter. "You were never hard to love. You were just easy to overlook. When I thought loyalty came without boundaries. I know you're not asking for anything. I know I can't fix it, but I'll spend the rest of my life remembering that you didn't leave like someone angry. You left like someone free, and I'll never forget that silence was the last gift you gave me." He sealed the envelope. Wrote her name on the front. He didn't mail it. He placed it in the same drawer where she used to keep her grocery lists. Because not every message is meant to be sent. Some truths are meant to live with the one who learned them too late. Have you ever walked away so quietly? They finally heard you. Drop she left with peace. Not permission in the comments if you've ever chosen silence over explaining what they already knew. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe loyalty should never cost your stillness. And when it does, you take it back. The days blurred after Cassian's letter. He didn't send it. He didn't shred it either. He kept it folded in a drawer with a paperclip on top, tucked between her old grocery lists and the faded envelope that once held her wedding vows. He would reread it every other night, not to relive anything, but to remind himself that loss, when quiet, carves deeper. No begging, no slammed doors, no loud ending. Just a woman who used to be his whole world, choosing stillness instead of explanation. Talia, by contrast, wasn't looking back. She woke early these days, not because she had to, but because the morning was hers. She walked barefoot across her small apartment, made her tea, lit a soft sandalwood candle, and stood by the window to watch the city stretch its bones. Her peace didn't come from revenge. It came from routine, from living honestly, from not waiting for a man to catch up to her growth. That morning, she had a client call with a local boutique owner who needed branding help. She listened patiently, gave insight, sent a mood board, followed up with notes. Afterward, she curled up on her couch and opened her notebook. She had stopped journaling about Cassian, not out of anger, but because there was nothing new to write. His chapter had ended. Now she wrote about new things, ideas, goals, design sketches, small prayers for herself. Please let this piece stay longer than the storm did. At 11:52 a.m., her phone buzzed with a message. "Imani, just letting you know." He's asking around. Not in a creepy way, just around. He asked Carla again. Talia stared at the screen. She didn't feel fear. She didn't feel power either. She felt distance. Because when you've healed for yourself, someone else's search doesn't shake you. She replied, "Talia, I'm not hiding. I'm just no longer in the places he left me." Meanwhile, Cassian stood at a corporate art exhibit, surrounded by people he once felt comfortable around. He used to know exactly what to say, knew how to make people feel like he was the smartest one in the room without sounding arrogant. Now, he stood quietly, glass in hand, listening instead. The room buzzed. Champagne clinked. Women in soft gowns spoke in polished tones. But he wasn't looking at any of them. He kept thinking of how Talia used to look at him at these events, how she never tried to be someone else, how she didn't dress for the crowd, how she made every space feel less artificial, and how she used to squeeze his hand twice when the room felt too loud. He stared down at his empty hand and left before dessert was served. That evening, Talia met Imani at a poetry reading downtown. It was held in a small, dimly lit venue with mismatched chairs and voices that shook with vulnerability. They ordered drinks, found a spot near the back. One poem stood out. A woman stepped forward and read, "He thought I'd scream, thought I'd fight, but I left with nothing but a packed bag and a steady pulse. And now he's screaming into the space I made by walking away without fire." Talia didn't blink. She just reached for her drink and sipped slowly. When the crowd applauded, she clapped too, not for the heartbreak in the poem, but for the clarity. After the event, Imani nudged her. "That last one sounded familiar." Talia smiled faintly. "Sounded finished." Imani raised her brows. "So you're really done?" Talia turned to her. "I was done the moment I chose not to scream. I just didn't realize how done. Until the silence started to feel like home." At 9:41 p.m., Cassian sat in his car again. He hadn't planned to. He'd just driven with no direction and ended up near her neighborhood. He didn't get out, didn't try to find her door. He just sat there, headlights off, city noise fading behind the windshield. He thought of calling, thought of writing again. Instead, he pulled out his phone and opened the last picture he had of her. Not a posed photo, just a candid one. She was laughing, face turned slightly away, in a bookstore, light catching her cheek. It was from the day she found a copy of a rare cookbook she'd once lost as a child. She had told him then, "Some things return when you stop chasing them." He hadn't understood it at the time. Now he did, because she wasn't running. She was never running. She simply stopped looking back. Saturday morning arrived with a soft drizzle tapping on the window. Talia didn't pull the curtains closed. She left them open and let the light come through, dim as it was. She liked quiet mornings like this, no performance, no pressure. She took her time washing dishes, pausing to smell her coffee before every sip. She'd started a new routine, no phone until afternoon, not to avoid people, but to remind herself who she was without noise. Her apartment smelled of cinnamon and coconut. She'd lit a small candle after breakfast, something subtle. It reminded her of the cabin trip she took with her mother years ago, when they'd both cried for different reasons but cooked together anyway. Back then, she didn't know what it meant to leave for herself. Now, she was living it. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Cassian walked into a hardware store. He didn't need anything. He just needed to be out of his house. He hadn't heard from her since the last time Imani answered the door. He wasn't angry. He wasn't desperate either. He was suspended, stuck in the in-between space where you realize someone has moved on, and you're not quite sure if your apology will be for them or for yourself. He walked aisle after aisle, eyes unfocused. A clerk asked if he needed help. He shook his head and left without buying anything. That afternoon, Imani met Talia for a quick lunch. They found a table at a small corner cafe, ordered soup and flatbread, and ate like women who knew how to hold their own joy. "He's still checking," Imani said after a sip of lemonade. Talia didn't ask who. She already knew. "He's not knocking," Imani added, "but he's circling." Talia stirred her drink. "I'm not bothered," she said, "but I'm not flattered either." "Then, how do you feel?" Talia thought about it, free and a little sad for him. Imani tilted her head. "Why sad?" "Because he's doing all this now, the searching, the showing up. And it's not because he suddenly loves me. It's because he finally sees me, and I've already walked past needing to be seen." Imani reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You really meant it, huh? That day you left?" "I meant it the moment he hugged someone else in public and still came home like nothing happened." Back at his office, Cassian pulled open a drawer and found her old business card, the one she had printed back when she first launched her brand consulting work. He used to tease her for how minimal it looked. White card, black letters, no logo. She used to say, "I don't need flair. I need clarity." He ran his thumb over the edge. He didn't call, didn't email. He just stared at the card until his eyes blurred. Talia spent the evening doing laundry, folding shirts, watching a documentary about quiet living. She made a simple dinner, grilled vegetables and quinoa. She didn't check her messages, didn't post, didn't scroll. She was present, and presence, she'd learned, didn't need an audience. At 9:18 p.m., her phone buzzed. Unknown number, still not asking you to come back. I know better. But if there's ever a moment you wonder whether it meant something, it did, all of it. She read it once, deleted it, not out of anger, but because she didn't need to keep things that once mattered if they no longer served the woman she was now. Cassian waited for a reply. 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour, nothing, and still, he respected it. He knew this was the lesson, not that she was gone, but that she'd healed in silence, without his help, without needing him to watch it happen. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and whispered one thing into the room. "I see you now." But she wasn't there to hear it. Because healing doesn't wait for witnesses. Cassian woke before dawn that morning, not to a phone call or alarm, but to something heavier. He'd had a dream, the kind that doesn't leave you shaken, just hollow. In it, she wasn't angry. She wasn't crying. She was simply gone. She didn't walk away. She wasn't running. She just wasn't there anymore. He sat up in bed, palms on his knees, the silence pressing in. The air in the house felt colder, not physically, emotionally. This place was no longer lived in. The furniture still stood. The walls still held memories. But the life that once existed inside them had moved on, with her. At 6:42 a.m., he stood barefoot in the kitchen, holding a glass of water he didn't drink. There was a note still taped to the fridge. "Don't forget your meeting with Simon, 3 p.m., and eat something real today." Her handwriting, months old. He hadn't taken it down. And now he realized why. Because it was the last thing in this house that still spoke to him like he mattered. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Talia sat cross-legged on her bed, with a notebook open and a soft instrumental playlist playing on her speaker. She was building a new framework for her brand. Her client list had doubled in 3 months. Referrals were coming in steadily. Her phone buzzed with a message from a new wellness brand founder. "Client, heard amazing things about your energy and clarity. Can we set up a session next week?" Talia smiled, typed back a polite yes, closed the phone. She had become known for peace, not as an aesthetic, but as a practice. And people wanted to learn how she did it. But it wasn't a secret. It started the day she stopped begging people to see her. Cassian finally left the house, not to work, not to chase anyone, just to walk. He drove to Piedmont Park, parked near the garden trail, and stepped out. The air was sharp, mid-December breeze brushing against his skin. He didn't wear a coat. He didn't plan to stay long. But the quiet of the park matched the quiet inside him. He walked past a mother pushing a stroller, a runner nodding to music, a woman on a bench reading a book with a thermos beside her. He kept walking until he reached the fountain and sat. It was here they'd once walked together. He remembered how she laughed when a dog jumped into the water and splashed her new flats. She didn't get mad. She looked at him, soaked and smiling, and said, "Life's messy. That doesn't mean it's broken." He didn't respond then. He didn't know how. Now, he whispered it to himself. "Life's messy. That doesn't mean it's broken." But this silence, this absence, it wasn't mess. It was finished. At that same hour, Talia was in the back of a local bookstore with 2 women from her writing group. They were reviewing each other's work, raw, personal essays. One woman had written about divorce, another about the fear of starting over. When it was Talia's turn, she read aloud something she hadn't shared before. There is no greater grief than watching someone love your patience, but not your presence, and no greater peace than choosing yourself anyway. The table went quiet. Then came a breathy, wow, and a soft, that hit hard. Talia didn't need the praise. She didn't need the validation. She just needed the release. And now that she had it, she felt lighter. Cassian returned home mid-afternoon and sat by the front window. He watched cars pass. People walked their dogs. Families held shopping bags. A kid rode a scooter and laughed too loud. And none of it involved him. He was living in a house built for love, and he had no one to share it with, because he hadn't lost Talia in one moment. He lost her in layers. Every time he said later, every time he missed what she was silently carrying, every time he assumed her stillness meant safety, but her stillness had always been strength, and she had quietly walked away long before her feet left the floor. The evening air carried a soft chill as Cassian stood by the window, his hand resting against the glass. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one. The neighborhood looked the same, but he wasn't. He hadn't touched the dinner he reheated, hadn't turned on the TV, hadn't checked his email. None of it mattered, not tonight. Because tonight, he realized something he had been avoiding. She wasn't just gone, she wasn't coming back. Not because she was angry, but because she'd healed. And people who heal don't return to places that made them bleed. Talia sat on her couch with her laptop open, responding to emails, her notes beside her. Her planner had check marks across nearly every page this week. Projects, calls, deliverables, invoices sent and received. She was stable now, not just emotionally, financially, professionally, personally. Everything that had once been tangled up in the planning, the compromise, the waiting, was now in her hands alone. And she didn't drop a thing. Her phone buzzed. A message from Carla at the non-profit. Carla, he stopped by again. Just asked about your writing group. I didn't tell him anything. Just thought you should know. Talia stared at the message for a moment. Then she replied, Talia, he's allowed to be lost. But I'm not the answer. She meant it. Cassian sat at his desk, the lamp casting a dim glow over the stack of unopened envelopes and an old notebook. He opened it. Inside were short notes Talia had once written, tiny love reminders she used, to slip into his luggage or place beside his toothbrush before he traveled. You don't have to be perfect to be present. I believe in your strength, but I also see your softness. Love is louder when it's quiet. He closed the notebook gently, his fingers lingering on the cover. He didn't cry. He didn't break. But he finally felt it. The space she once filled wasn't just empty. It was sacred. And he'd stepped all over it for years. Meanwhile, Talia pulled a chair up to her small balcony, a mug of tea, a fresh blanket. Her journal. She wrote slowly, deliberately. Healing didn't make me cruel. It made me clear. I no longer confuse history with worth. I no longer mistake guilt for love, and I don't need him to understand it, because I lived it, and I learned. She paused, then underlined one word, learned. At that same moment, Cassian typed out a message. I don't expect a reply. I don't even expect forgiveness. But if you ever wonder whether I see it now, I do. All of it. You, your silence, your strength, the way you never raised your voice. Just your standards. I see it now. I'm sorry I saw it too late. He hovered over the send button, then hit delete. Because the apology wasn't hers to receive anymore. It was his to carry. Talia closed her journal and looked up at the sky. No stars tonight, but she didn't mind. She wasn't looking for signs. She had already made her decision, and the absence of regret was enough light to walk in. Monday morning came without wait. Talia woke before her alarm, not out of anxiety but rhythm. She'd built a life that flowed now, one where her mornings weren't rushed. Her time wasn't borrowed, and her spirit wasn't waiting for anyone to catch up. She sat at her desk with her tea and checked her calendar. 2 client sessions, a design revision, and a branding audit. No space for dwelling. No room for ghosts. Just purpose. By noon, she had already checked off 2 tasks. Her phone buzzed. A familiar number. No name saved. But her body remembered the pattern. She didn't answer. She let it ring. Let the silence answer him. A minute later, a message followed. You don't have to respond. I just want you to know, I admire you now more than I ever said. I understand the silence. And I'm sorry. She stared at it for a while. Not frozen. Not hurting. Just aware of how late it had come, of how far she'd already traveled, and of how little she needed it. Meanwhile, Cassian sat in his car outside the downtown office tower. He was scheduled to meet a new investor, a big one. Old money, stiff reputation, but his head wasn't in the meeting. He had sent the message out of impulse. Not manipulation, not hope, just the need to admit something aloud, even if she never heard it, even if it never made a difference. Inside the tower lobby, he looked around. Everyone was moving fast, assistants checking emails, execs on calls, interns adjusting suits. It all used to excite him. Now it felt loud. He walked out. No explanation, no excuse. He just didn't feel like building anything else on top of a life he hadn't finished cleaning up. Talia replied hours later, not to the message, but to herself. She opened her journal and wrote, "Some people don't apologize to be forgiven. They apologize because they finally slowed down enough to see what they broke." She placed the pen down. That was all she needed to say. To herself. To the moment. To the quiet. That evening, she stopped by a small local art studio. They were holding a showcase. Community artists, low entry fee, simple walls. She didn't go to be seen. She went to feel. One painting stopped her cold. It was a canvas of a woman standing in the middle of a road. No cars, no signs, just a faint glow in the sky and dust around her shoes. The plaque beside it read, "She didn't take the wrong path. She just stopped waiting for someone to walk it with her." Talia smiled and walked to the next one. Cassian didn't send another message. He didn't wait for a reply either. He started working late again, but not to avoid life, to rebuild what mattered. Not power, not wealth, not public image, but integrity. He started small. He wrote checks to the organizations Talia had once cared about, anonymously. He pulled his company out of one silent partnership she used to challenge him about. He made room for better conversations. And still, he said nothing to her. Because sometimes the best apology was changing what she'd once had to carry alone. 2 weeks passed. No more messages. No calls. No knocks at her door. Not because he stopped caring, but because he finally understood. This wasn't about fixing anything. This was about leaving it alone and doing better somewhere else. Talia woke up that Thursday to sunlight across her collarbone and the smell of fresh coffee from the cafe downstairs. She had no appointments booked for the morning. Instead, she let the light sit with her. She stretched her limbs, slow and soft. She played her favorite playlist and moved barefoot across the wooden floor like she had nowhere to be but here, because that was the truth. She was exactly where she needed to be. By 11 a.m., she was at her desk, reviewing her latest project, a rebrand for a local bakery run by a mother-daughter duo. The brief was simple. Keep the warmth, elevate the message. She smiled as she scrolled through the drafts. Love didn't need to be loud. It needed to be honest. And that's what she gave people now. Not just strategy, but sincerity. She was known in her field not for her trend forecasts or logo work, but for helping people tell the truth. And wasn't that what she'd always wanted in return? Truth. Across the city, Cassian sat through a quarterly leadership review. His answers were sharp, his tone steady. He no longer barked orders. He asked better questions. People noticed, not because he was softer, but because he was present. Cora, his assistant, lingered after the meeting. "You've been different lately." He looked up. "In a good way," she added. "Just grounded." He nodded. She hesitated. "Have you spoken to her?" "No." "Do you plan to?" He closed his laptop gently. That part of the story's not mine to reopen." She nodded slowly, then left. That evening, Talia attended an open discussion night hosted by her writing group. The theme, "What Strength Looks Like Now." When it was her turn, she stood in the circle and spoke clearly. "For me, strength isn't shouting. It's choosing silence when you know the noise would only waste your breath. It's saying no to what doesn't hold you, to who doesn't see you, to who remembers you only when you're gone." Someone in the circle whispered, "Amen." Talia continued, "Strength is leaving without slamming the door, not because you're scared, but because you're steady." She sat down. Her pulse didn't race, because her voice wasn't trembling anymore. That night, Cassian opened a blank page in his notebook and wrote, "She didn't need revenge. She didn't need to ruin me. She didn't even need to correct me. She just left and stayed gone." And somehow that became the loudest truth I ever heard. He tore the page out, folded it once, slipped it inside the book she left behind the night she moved out, the one about building identity through clarity. He closed it and didn't open it again. Talia walked home from her writing circle under the stars. No coat, just a scarf. She moved through the night like someone who didn't owe anyone an explanation. Someone who no longer waited to be picked, chosen, kept, because she had chosen herself. And she stayed. Sunday came quietly. The city was slow that morning. Bare sidewalks, closed cafes, a breeze soft enough to forget. Talia stood at her window, tea in hand, watching people pass below. A jogger, a man walking his dog, an older couple sharing silence on a bench. She didn't feel envy. She didn't feel loss. She felt rooted. In a life she didn't have to justify. In a choice she didn't regret. Her phone buzzed once. A message from the gallery where she'd submitted a small piece anonymously. An entry in their open call for writers and painters. "Gallery, we've selected your piece for the winter collection. We'd love to feature your name with it." She smiled, then typed back, "Talia, thank you, but please leave it unsigned. The work speaks for itself." She set the phone down and exhaled. It wasn't humility, it was certainty. She didn't need her name in lights to know her worth. Her story was written in how she lived, not how loud she told it. Across the city, Cassian stepped into his kitchen and reached instinctively for the coffee tin, only to find it empty. No note, no reminder, no list on the fridge in her handwriting telling him to restock. That kind of silence used to annoy him. Now it humbled him. Because he used to take comfort for granted. Now he understood it as a choice someone had made, every day, to stay. And she no longer did. He walked into his study and opened the drawer. Inside, the letter he never sent, her planner, and a folded paper with his handwriting. He read it again, slower this time. "She left me with peace, not permission. And now I carry both the quiet she gifted me and the lesson I bought with her absence." That afternoon, Talia took a walk through a Sunday artisan market. Local vendors lined the sidewalks. Musicians played soft saxophone in the background. Children tugged their parents toward food trucks and tiny handmade clay booths. She wandered through it slowly. No destination. At one booth, a woman sold stitched pillows with phrases sewn across each one. One pillow read, "Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that stay closed when peace lives on the other side." Talia paused. The vendor smiled. "Handmade." "That quote's mine." Talia picked up the pillow, held it, and said, "It feels like something I've lived." She bought it, not for her couch, but for her spirit. Meanwhile, Cassian sat across from his mother at a quiet brunch. She hadn't seen him in weeks. "You look tired," she said, cutting her toast. He nodded. "You've lost something," she added. He sipped his coffee. "Someone." She didn't press. She knew. "She was rare," his mother said gently. "And I don't mean rare like diamonds. I mean rare like balance. She had it." "She still does," he said quietly. "She just took it with her." There was nothing more to say. And that, he finally understood, was closure, not the words exchanged. but the understanding when nothing more needs to be spoken. Talia returned home just before dusk. She placed the pillow on her bed, lit a candle, and opened her windows. She didn't post about the gallery. She didn't announce her win. She journaled, ate dinner slowly, called her cousin to check on their new baby. Her life had expanded, and yet it had simplified, because she had stopped carrying what didn't feed her peace. It had been exactly 6 months since Talia last spoke to Cassian. There had been no court battles, no drawn-out settlements, only one signed agreement and mutual understanding. He kept the penthouse. She took her name off everything but her dignity. No tears in court, no scandal. It didn't mean it hadn't hurt. It meant she chose not to perform her pain. Talia now taught part-time at a local college, Sustainable Ethics in Branding, a course she created. She didn't talk about her past. She spoke about values, about how reputation isn't the same as integrity. One of her students asked her once, "What if someone looks good on paper but acts wrong in real life?" Talia smiled gently and said, "Then the paper isn't worth the ink it was printed on." That same day, Cassian attended a global leadership summit in Boston. He'd built a new division. Profits were up. But his speech hit different. He didn't talk about growth. He spoke about stillness. Success, he said to a room full of CEOs, isn't what you build when people are watching. It's what remains standing when someone walks away. Some clapped. But those who had lived it stayed quiet. Later that week, Talia received an email from a former vendor. They'd launched a new sustainability program and wanted her to consult. The project would involve traveling to Singapore for a 3-week audit and retreat. Her first instinct was to hesitate, but then she remembered how often she stayed behind for people who wouldn't have stayed for her. So she booked the flight and packed a notebook labeled only with 2 words, "No return." The day before she left, she walked through the same boutique where the doors had once opened on the truth. The cafe across the street was still there. A different couple now sat at that table. She didn't look away. She smiled, then stepped forward and bought herself a simple ring from the boutique, not for symbolism, not for show, but for grounding, because she no longer wore anything someone gave to distract her from the truth. Cassian found her name listed months later in a journal article about ethics in brand evolution. She hadn't given interviews, but her work spoke for her. He didn't reach out, because he finally understood. When a woman leaves quietly and doesn't come back loud, you don't chase, you reflect. Talia stood one evening on her Singapore balcony, watching the ocean. The air was humid. The lights from distant boats flickered like small truths in a vast lie. She held her teacup to her lips and exhaled, not out of sadness, out of wholeness, because peace wasn't a chapter, it was a lifestyle. If this story spoke to a part of you you've been ignoring, don't scroll past. Comment, "She chose peace." If you believe stillness is power, like, share, and subscribe for more stories that whisper louder than they scream. Thank you for watching Mr. Charles' Stories, where calm doesn't mean weak, and walking away is sometimes the strongest move you'll ever make.